What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video brought to you by the Playbook Sports Podcast. My name is Colin, coming with you with the Dallas Cowboy 2023-2024 season rewind, season review. Sadly came to an early end, but as a Cowboy fan of 27 years now, it's everything I've expected. No matter how high we go in the regular season, no matter how low we go, never set your expectation too high, because whenever wild card or the division round comes around, the Cowboys will cowboy.
Before we get into today's video, guys, I just want to give a special shout out to today's sponsors, starting with Gold Fine and Bowles, lawyers for the injured. Personal injury, workers' compensation, those are their two things, but any sort of legal advice, they're the people to call. Give them a phone call, 309-673-5144. Tell them we sent you, okay? And I'd also like to shout out SeatGeek for sponsoring today's video as well. Use promo code PlaybookSports on their website to get $20 off your first purchase of $30 or more. Let's get back to the video.
Let's talk quickly about this season. We're going to start at the beginning and kind of gradually work our way through. We're going to talk about some team success versus individual player success. And then we'll talk about the Packer playoff loss at the very end. So stick around for that if you like to see sad Cowboy fans, because that'll be me at the end. So starting here at the beginning, we'll start with my initial schedule reaction and my record prediction for the Dallas Cowboys 8 months ago. Released a video. Came out, went through every single game. I gave my opinion if I think they'd win the game or lose the game based off the information I had 8 months ago. I said they go 10-7. I thought Dallas would go 10-7 after two straight 12-5 seasons. And they did the damn thing again, went 12-5 again, proving me wrong. 2 games better than I had initially given them credit for. Quickly looking through all the stuff here. I thought they lose week 2 to the Jets. I didn't know Aaron Rodgers would go down, 3 or 4 snaps into a season. They ended up beating the Jets. I thought they would beat the Cardinals week 3, and they ended up losing to the Cardinals. I thought they would lose to the Chargers with Justin Herbert, new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. Shocker, I picked the Chargers to have a lot of success this season, and they did no such thing. And the next one I got wrong here. I picked Seattle to come into Dallas on Thursday night and beat the Cowboys. Cowboys, looked in trouble early. DK Metcalf had a hell of a game. But the Dallas Cowboys ended up pulling that one out, proving me wrong. And then I'd say they beat the Miami Dolphins in Miami. That's kind of a little shot, a little jab here to Nate on the podcast, who's a Miami Dolphin fan. There is no circumstance where I want to give any of my friends' teams credit over my team. So I took the Cowboys there, and they were in it. I mean, they only allowed 1 touchdown to maybe the most prolific offense this season in the NFL. 1 touchdown, 5 field goals, but couldn't win the game, lost by 2 points. And then the last one I got wrong. I thought they'd walk into Washington week 18 in a game that wouldn't matter. And I figured they wouldn't either play their starters or they wouldn't play the whole game. And they would lose to Washington, much like they did last season in week 18 against Sam Howell and the Commanders. So I got 6 games wrong. I got 11 games right, which isn't bad. Looking at it, Trayvon Diggs plays 2 games, gets hurt before week 3. Huge loss for the Dallas Cowboys secondary. Leighton Vander Esch hurt in week 5 against the 49ers in the game that he should have been out of at that point. They're already getting demolished. And to go 11-6 effectively on my prediction with 2 key Dallas Cowboy defensive injuries, I'll take it. I mean, that's about mid-60s percentile. You see these fools come on television all the time, give their record season predictor, and they're like 3-14 based off their predictions. I'll take 11-6. I'll take 11-6. Not bad. Dallas Cowboys. The 4 games that they won that I thought they lose was against the Jets, the Seahawks, the Commanders in week 18, and the Chargers in LA. And they won all 4 of those games. I thought they'd lose. And the 2 games they lost, I thought they'd win, was in Arizona. Maybe the biggest shocker of the year across the league. Maybe biggest upset as well. I mean, I think Dallas was like 13-point favorites or 12.5-point favorites in that game. They lost by 12. So complete opposite side. And then Miami. I had them beat Miami. They lost to Miami. 10-7 predicted. They won 4 more, lost 2 more than I thought. And they go 2 games better. A 3rd straight 12-5 season under Mike McCarthy. So let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys here. A running narrative, as Nate would know, or any Cowboys/Dolphins fans out there would know, is the media is talking about them against teams under 500 or teams above 500. Sure, they have a good record, but who have they beaten? It's a narrative we heard all season. And, well, it kind of reigns true here. The graphic here shows, on the right side, the 8-1 against teams under 500, the one loss being the Arizona loss. Dallas Cowboys plus 200 point differential, almost 35 points a game, giving up less than 12 a game, plus 13 turnover differential. We them boys, we're going to the Super Bowl. This is our year. And then you see the left side and you go, okay, well, how do they look against playoff, caliber teams? How do they look against the good teams in the league? You go 4-4, which isn't bad. Honestly, if you demolish your bad teams on your schedule like the Cowboys did, and you squeak out, a 500 or right around 500 against the good teams, you're more than likely going to have a great record and more than likely going to win your division. But you look at the minus 10 point differential, it's a little deceiving in there. The 2 of the 4 losses to Miami and Philly, both on the road as well. Tough games. I mean, tough games. Dallas loses by 5 to Philly on a game where a bounce or 2 goes their way. Schoonmaker's a yard deeper. Dak doesn't step out on the 2-point conversion. A whole lot goes differently. They maybe win that game against Miami. You lose by 2 and you fumble on 1st and goal at the 1 on your first drive. Don't do that. You might win as well. But the 2 losses that really stick in the hearts and the minds of Dallas Cowboy fans are week 5 in San Fran when you lose 42-10. Yikes. And then I think it was 16 or 15 in Buffalo in December, and you lose 33-10. Yikes. I mean, that's 73-20. That's a minus 53 point differential against the 2 hardest teams you played all season. I don't count Philly because it's an interdivisional game. Yes, Philly is a very good team, but interdivision is different. You can be the worst team in the league against the best team in the league, and if you're in the same division, it's going to be a decent game. But the 2 biggest games Dallas played this year on the road, Bills, 49ers, got slaughtered in both. So yes, you get the Stephen A. As a Cowboy fan, there's one thing you don't want to see on Monday morning, and that's this fucking clown wearing his Cowboy jersey, his Cowboy hat, and his cigar, talking in his little, Texas Cowboy accent. That's the only thing you don't want to see on Monday morning. And well, we saw it a few times this season. Let's just leave it at that. Minus 3 turnover differential. Talking about teams under 500 versus over 500. The biggest stat on this graphic that jumps out at me is the defensive points allowed. Yes, the offensive came down, 9 points per game scoring, but the defense is giving up 15 more a game, almost 14 plus more a game. And it's like, that's 2 touchdowns that the offense has to make up for compared to these games. Defense doesn't get the takeaways. Offensive turns it over more against the better teams. I mean, it's just natural things. Obviously, your teams can play better against inferior opponents than they are superior opponents. But Dallas Cowboys, very mediocre year against the cream de la creme in the NFL. 4-4 record. You'll take it. You'll take it. But moving into some big narrative to start this season was why Kellen Moore was let go and Mike McCarthy taking over play calling this season. Mike McCarthy came out. Kellen Moore got the scapegoat title from last year's divisional round loss to San Francisco, with obviously the last play being Ezekiel Elliott playing center. Not a great play call. Not a great look. Big Mike McCarthy says, you know what? I think Kellen Moore was getting a little cute with the play calling. I think he was trying to light up the scoreboard. We were throwing the ball way too much. We're going to come in here. We're going to establish the run. We're going to run this Texas Coast, West Coast hybrid offense. We're going to establish the run and be a hard-nosed team. Well, guess what, Mike McCarthy? You did step up 3rd down conversions. You did get the best year out of Dak Prescott as a pro, in my opinion. You're up there points per game. The time possession's been the best it's been the last few years. You can look at the graphic below for all these statistics that I diligently put together for you guys. And the pass game honestly looked great too. It's just, how about that run game? I mean, I thought we were going to run the ball here. Last year, you were top 10 in both yards and attempts and touchdowns. This year, you're middle of the pack, 14th, 16th in those categories. So the Dallas Cowboys didn't run the ball well this year. And that kind of goes a little bit to Tony Pollard as well. Yes, he did get over 1,000 yards this season. I think he had 6 or 7 touchdowns. But based off what he had last year, an aging Ezekiel Elliott, we couldn't get him out of town fast enough. You're bringing in this young speed guy that's going to hit home runs, and Tony Pollard. And there were times this season he just looked like he couldn't do the full workload. I don't know if it was the offensive line or if it's just Tony Pollard, just the hits piling up throughout the season. But the Dallas Cowboys were brutal at running the ball inside the tackles all season long, especially down the home stretch of the season. But Mike McCarthy, it's kind of, you're bringing him back this next year, and it's kind of the double-edged sword. I said this on our podcast when we talked about, I think, the divisional round after the Cowboys had lost the wild card round. And it's, Mike McCarthy can get you over the hump. He's not going to get you to a conference. He hasn't gotten you to a conference championship game yet. He hasn't gotten you to a Super Bowl yet. I'm 27. I've never seen an NFC championship game. So that's the one negative. Can he get you over the hump? Can he get you over the hump? He hasn't done it yet. On the other side, 3 straight 12-5 seasons. As Dallas Cowboy fans who watched 9 years of Jason Garrett as head coach, 8-8, 8-8, 8-8, 7-9, 9-7, 8-8, 8-8, 8-8. I will take 12-5 all day. Yes, the playoff success is the same. There's been none. But you got to have some highs with the lows. And Jason Garrett, we had all lows, or we had some middling ground, but a lot of lows. At least Mike McCarthy's given us those highs. 36 wins in 3 years is very hard to do in the NFL. And he just got the best year out of Dak Prescott by being the play caller to Mike McCarthy. Did he simplify things? Did he get the ball out of his hands quicker? You know, early in the season it was Deacon Dak. Later in the year, they opened it up, and obviously you can see the difference between these two. The Cowboys offense, first 5 weeks and last 12 weeks. Let's go ahead and get into some individual guys here. Got to give our flowers. Talking about the Dallas Cowboys, they were 12-5. I already mentioned it. They won the NFC East. Eagles started 10-1. Thank you for 1-5 down the stretch and allowing the Dallas Cowboys to win the division. Just means they won't win it next year because no NFC East team has won the division back-to-back years since like 03, which is crazy to think about. But shout out Eagles for choking down the stretch. Dallas 12-5. Dallas NFC East champs. Dallas second seed. Dallas perfect 8-0 at home. Dallas 9 all pros, 4 first team all pros, 5 second team. And they have guys that are in the NFL Honors Award finalists, and then you just see the first round exit, and it breaks your heart. Let's get to the first guy here. Not only is he the only Cowboy in the MVP as a finalist, there's 5 finalists across the categories. Dallas Cowboys have 1 MVP finalist, 2 Offensive Player of the Year finalists, 2 Defensive Player of the Year finalists. Let's get to that MVP finalist, and he's also one of those 2 Offensive Player of the Year finalists, and that is MV Prescott. Dak Prescott, I do not think he's the MVP. I might as well clarify that now. I think up till that Buffalo game, he had a damn good case. And then you look how he played in Buffalo. If you lose that game, whatever, but you can't have 100 yards passing in that game and lose. Terrible game. After that game, obviously, he fell off the conversation, but he's still a finalist. I think he's probably second or third on my list for MVP. Got to give it to Lamar Jackson. Fantastic year with the Ravens. But that's not what this video is about. Dak Prescott this year, you can see the graphic. Yes, I did leave out 2020 and 2022 just because he missed significant time in those years. 2020 missed 12 games. His leg was sideways against the Giants. We all remember that. And then last year he missed 5 games, got hurt week 1, hitting his throwing thumb on the helmet of a defender, missed weeks like 2 through 7, I believe. And then came back. And that was a huge question last year. Yes, we all know about the 15 interceptions in 12 games. We all know about it. But how much is that coming back from a thumb injury, and how hard is it to throw the ball, grip the ball, and rip it where it needs to go, as fast as it needs to go, as precise as it needs to go when you're coming back from a thumb injury on your throwing hand? That's my only excuse for that. But we're on past that last year. On the graphic here down below, I have the last 3 seasons he's played the full year. And you see the numbers. Yes, 2019 most yards. And then you see last year, okay, most touchdowns. You just see Dak Prescott just slowly. I mean, completion percentage goes up. The yardage is going to be right around that 4,500 middling ground. The touchdowns are going up the last few years. The interceptions going down. The passer rating going up. That's the only thing we can ask. You know, it's something whenever a quarterback this upcoming year is going to have a $60 million cap hit, and you're going to have to give him a year or 2 dummy years just to, you know, delegate some of that money across a few more years, because a $60 million cap hit for 1 year is crazy. But Dak Prescott has definitely put that faith in. I know it's the big games. He hasn't shown it completely in the big games. But throughout the regular season, at least, I know you get paid for what you do in the postseason. I understand. But what he's shown the last 3 full seasons, he's played the full season. The last 3 years, he's played the full seasons. 2019, 2021, 2023. He is just improving and improving, and that's exactly what you want to see as a Cowboy fan. The only thing now we need to see is that postseason success. Will we ever get it? That's a great question. Don't know. But talking about Dak Prescott here, you see the stats below. Just to add a few more, he was 3rd in passing yards across the league. He's only 108 yards behind Tua for first in the league. And Dak sat out, 6 or 7 whole fourth quarters because the Cowboys were just kicking the teeth into their opponents. Dak first in completion percentage, first in passing touchdowns, second in passer rating. And one of my only ways I've been able to cope with their choke against the Packers is just scrolling through old Cowboy hater Twitter. That's the only thing that's gotten me through this low time as a Cowboy fan. The week following that wild card round was scrolling through and seeing, you know, the post about Dak's not going to throw interceptions. I promise I'm not throwing 10 this year. And everyone's like, oh, he'll have 10 in 5 games. They'll have 10 by their week 7 bye. He'll have 10 in this, Well, guess what? Dak Prescott didn't have 10 picks this year. And guess who did have more picks than Dak Prescott? Probably your favorite quarterbacks. I would assume that if you sat down and made a list of your top 10 quarterbacks in the league, 5 or 6 of these guys who had more picks than Dak this year, maybe even 7, that had more picks than Dak this year would be on that list ahead of Dak. Let's go through it. Matt Stafford, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes, Tua Tagovailoa, Jared Goff, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy. How many of those guys would you say are better than Dak Prescott? I guarantee the public would say probably 6 or 7 of those guys are better than Dak. All of them had more interceptions this year, but only one gets crucified for it because he has that star on his helmet, Dak Prescott. Let's move on here. Next guy up, we got to give our flowers to. He's an Offensive Player of the Year finalist. Once again, I don't think any of the Cowboys are going to win the awards, which is saddening because Cowboys can't win anything. We just can't win fucking shit. And it's so annoying. Dak's not winning MVP. Lamar is. Dak nor CeeDee Lamb are going to win Offensive Player of the Year. Probably Christian McCaffrey is, which is definitely deserved. Don't get me wrong. Lamar deserves MVP. McCaffrey probably should be MVP as well. But since Lamar's the quarterback, he's going to get it. Give McCaffrey the Offensive Player of the Year. Talk about this next guy, CeeDee Lamb, tale of 2 seasons. First 5 weeks, not good. Mike McCarthy was kind of still getting, the wheels churning with calling the offensive play calling duty, and he just didn't know how to get CeeDee Lamb involved, and it was very annoying for that crowd that was like, oh, CeeDee Lamb's not a wide receiver 1. CeeDee Lamb's not a wide receiver 1. Well, guess what? He's an all-pro first team this season. First 5 games, not great. You see the stats listed below. The Dallas Cowboys, not great in those games, 3-2. And then you look at the next 12 and you go, okay, this is the CeeDee Lamb we thought he was when they drafted him first round a few years back. This is why they traded Amari Cooper, because they knew they had this guy in the building. CeeDee Lamb, the last 12 weeks of the season, almost doubled everything across the board. Targets, 5.5 more. Receptions, 4 more, 3.5 more per game. Yards per game, about 45 more per game, and touchdowns are just not even close. He had 1 touchdown through 5 games, receiving 11 in the last 12. He had an all-pro, Pro Bowl type season the last 12 weeks of the season alone, let alone the first 5 weeks of the season. And you can see the Cowboys' success as a team once they got CeeDee Lamb involved. It's shocking. You get one of your best playmakers the ball in space, and your team succeeds. It's a weird concept, I know. Not only did the Dallas Cowboys record go up from 3-2 to 12-5, 9-3 down those last 12, their offensive yards per game went well up as well, getting almost 63 yards more per game once they got CeeDee Lamb going. Because not only does he get going, but he takes more attention from the defense with him, allowing other guys to open up underneath, allowing that run game to open up a little bit as well. And the Dallas Cowboys just started working like a well-oiled machine after that 5th game in San Francisco. Moving on now, let's go to the defensive side of the ball. I talked about the MVP finalists. I talked about both Offensive Player of the Year finalists. And let's get to the Defensive Player of the Year finalists. Micah Parsons, maybe the pillar of consistency. Oh, something I didn't mention with CeeDee Lamb. He's getting his bag sooner rather than later, I hope, because that price on his bag is going up, and well-deserved for CeeDee Lamb. Another guy who's about to get it paid as well, I'm sure, is going to be Micah Parsons here. Talk about the pillar of consistency for the Dallas Cowboys since he was drafted in 2021. Wins rookie defensive player of the year in his first year in 2021. Defensive player of the year finalist last year. Defensive player of the year finalist this year. 13 sacks, 13.5 sacks, 14 sacks. Everything is just going in the right direction. With the graphic here, you can see the one thing that is going downward is his tackles. And that is because the Dallas Cowboys are fully transitioning him from an edge or from an all-around hybrid linebacker to straight an edge rusher, which there are times I like it, there are times I don't, because he is a very elite edge rusher. He's a great speed guy to get around the corner, and he's about 80 pounds lighter than every single tackle he goes up against, and he still somehow manhandles them, and it's hilarious. But they're using him mostly as a rusher, which is good because he's very good at rushing the quarterback. But you look at like the Vander Esch issues or injury, I should say, and the Cowboys' run defensive issues throughout the year. It's like, I understand Micah on the line is fantastic, but if you could play this guy off the ball at linebacker, you're not getting him, immediately blocked by a 300-pound lineman. You're allowing him to roam and make a read and maybe, fill a hole in the run game or get to the edge and contain an outside run. I almost wish they would have allowed him to do that a little more this year. But, whatever. He's a fantastic player. And I know there are questions, in big games. Well, Micah Parsons disappears in big games. And it's like, well, whenever the offensive game plan is do not let this guy beat you. And they have not only a tackle that's 80 pounds heavier than him, maybe even a guard double teaming him. And sometimes they have the running back or tight end chipping as well. So it's like, yes, whenever you're getting hit by 4 guys on one play, it's kind of hard to get to the quarterback in less than 2.5 seconds. Shocker. But fantastic year from Parsons again. The whole podcast stuff starting this year, I saw a lot of people complaining about it. I don't care. As long as he performs on the field, do whatever the hell you want off the field, as long as it's not legal issues. We don't want any legal issues. But great year from Micah Parsons. You're going to get paid. We're going to see what happens with the Cowboys team in the next few years. CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons. If Dak Prescott's still around and he's only 30, I mean, how many more guys are we going to have to pay here? Like elite level pay as well. Micah Parsons, great year, consistent, as I said, plays every game a year, and the numbers are just going up as far as, what he's asked to do. He's the edge rusher. You see those sack numbers going up. You see those tackles for losses going up as well. Now let's get into the second defensive player of the year finalist for the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, Micah Parsons is the first one. The second one here was probably maybe 1A, 1B, biggest surprise of the year for the Dallas Cowboys. And it's the DaRon Bland. The DaRon Bland show, second-year player, fifth-round pick last year. Wasn't going to be asked to do a lot this year, as it was. I thought, they would obviously keep Jordan Lewis in the slot, and it'd be Gilmore out wide, and then Trayvon Diggs on the opposite side. Trayvon Diggs goes down in between week 2 and 3 in practice, which was very annoying. Cowboys had a lot of practice injuries this year. Pissed me off. But what do you do? Trayvon Diggs goes down, ACL done for the year. DaRon Bland, second-year player, fifth-year starter, or fifth-round pick, second-year player, comes in and does the damn thing. Not only does he fill Trayvon Diggs' shoes and reputation as a ball hawk and risk taker, playmaker when the ball's in the air, but he breaks the NFL record for most interceptions returned for touchdowns in a single season. DaRon Bland, fantastic year. And Al Harris as defensive backs coach for the Dallas Cowboys. That guy needs a pay raise because what he is able to do, you see the graphic below, between Trayvon Diggs as a second-year pro and DaRon Bland as a second-year pro. He's able to develop these guys. Yes, they are susceptible to giving up big plays because they're taking those chances to undercut a route and make a play on the football. Yes, they're going to give up yards. We saw it this year. DaRon Bland got absolutely toasted in that first half against DK Metcalf. I think he gave up like 130 yards and a half, which is terrible. But he had a huge pick late in the game whenever you needed a turnover and a play defensively. That's what you're getting from these guys. They're going to give up yards. Just going to happen. It's the nature of the beast. But you know what? When you need a big play, you need a momentum swing type of play, they're going to do the damn thing. And DaRon Bland, what a season. What a year. Couldn't talk enough about these guys. I said 1A, 1B for most surprising player of the season for the Cowboys. I gotta give some love for Brandon Aubrey. I don't have a picture and a graphic to throw up on the screen for you, but a rookie kicker coming in setting the NFL record for most field goals made consecutively to start a career, just being absolutely fantastic. I mean, I know the Dallas Cowboys haven't had the longest history of bad kickers, at least in my fandom. Probably the worst was either the very end of Dan Bailey, he was bad, or it was Brett Maher last year in the playoffs when he couldn't make an extra point for his life. And you're sitting there sweating like, oh my God, if a big situation comes to it, can this guy kick a field goal to tie it and or let you win the game? Brandon Aubrey coming in, absolutely, killing it. That guy is a stud. And it actually makes you ask the question. I know it sounds ridiculous on face value. It sounds ridiculous. And I'm a Cowboy homer, so I know it sounds even more ridiculous. But Brandon Aubrey was the best kicker in the NFL this year. He was a first-team All-Pro for a reason, as was DaRon Bland, as I mentioned. Brandon Aubrey, first team All-Pro. And I think he was the best kicker in the league just because of how efficient he was, how good he was. Yes, he did miss a few extra points. Yes, he did have a field goal blocked late in the season. But what a year. What a fantastic year. And that's really all I got individually on the Cowboys and their players. Their standouts, I already talked about 5 of them. We got Dak, we got CD, we got Micah, we got Bland, and then we're giving Brandon Aubrey that 5th star. Those are my 5 Cowboys that had the best seasons, in my opinion. Now let's talk about the ending to the season, because that's why we are here. Is the season is over. We are recapping. It took me about a week and a half to get this video out to you guys. I am late. I'm in my playoff Cowboy mode. Just extremely bad and inefficient. You can do it. I mean, game starts, Packers get the kickoff, and we talked about it on our podcast, and it's something that we said like the Dolphins should have done in Kansas City is, as a road underdog, if you go into a place and you can win the toss, elect to receive, and go down and score a touchdown immediately, it instantly sets in that little slight doubt in the back of your minds where you're like, oh shit, we're down 7-0 at home already. Like if we go out and don't score on this possession, or if we go out and punt, like 3-and-out punt, oh my, this crowd is immediately restless. There is doubt everywhere and everything is against us. Dallas Cowboys came out. The Packers scored 21 on their first 3 possessions. Inexcusable. Dak threw a pick to Jair Alexander early in the game. Diving play by Alexander through contact. It's a tough play. I don't blame that much wholly on Dak. I just really give that to Jair for making that play. Incredible. Now, the second pick to Darnell Savage, that one's on Dak, because that was an absolute Stevie. Middle of the field, double coverage. Nobody was open, and you hit him right in the chest, and he is gone before half to make it 27-0 Packers. And at that point, I was already gone from the watch party. I was already on the road. After 21-0, I was on the road, so I didn't even see the pick six. But I got home, I turned it on mid third quarter, and I saw, I think it was 48-16 or something stupid, and I was like, I am not watching this shit show. But they showed a graphic going from third to fourth quarter, and it was disturbing. The Packers had ran 39 plays of offense, and they had 41 points, and it's like they have more points than plays ran. I understand they had the pick six. I understand they had the short field off the Alexander interception, but it's like, how do they have 41 points on 39 plays? Incredible. But Dallas Cowboys shit their pants. Their defense played awful. Dak had a terribly slow start. Tried to claw him back into it at the end. Couldn't get it done. Another year, another playoff loss. Early playoff loss. Business as usual for the Cowboys and Cowboy fans. No surprise here. But that is the Cowboys season in review. Stay tuned for some mock draft stuff. We're going to have all that out. Free agency is obviously around the corner as well. Mike McCarthy staying, so there's no Cowboy news as far as a head coaching vacancy. We might see, though. Does any of the coordinators move? Does Jerry get restless with like a Dan Quinn potentially? The defense choked late. Dan, what are we doing? We're running man, and we're playing 10 yards off with Deron Bland on, Joe Musgrave, or not Joe Musgrave, that's the pitcher. Luke Musgrave out wide, 3rd and 2. Deron Bland's on a rookie tight end playing 9 yards of cushion, and he's running a 1 yard out route and stepping out of bounds for the first down. And it's like, come on, brother. We can't do this. We can't run zone defense, and guys have like a 10-yard radius, like Romeo Dobbs, wide open in the middle of the field. Prime Randy Moss, Romeo Dobbs turned into over Wild Card Weekend. But that's the recap. Got mock draft stuff coming out. Stay tuned for all those videos. Watch other videos. Addison's going to give a Chicago Bears season recap, or I'm sure he's celebrating first pick Bears. What are we doing? Caleb Williams, Justin Fields. What are we doing? Stay tuned to hear what Addison has to say about the Bears. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like down below. Shout out our sponsors. I'm sure Nate threw that in somewhere throughout the video. Go check them out. Use Playbook Sports at SeatGeek for $20 off. And we'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you guys for watching.